Welcome to another Mailbag Thursday here at Expected Buffalo. And you get Glasses Chad for the second time in 2 weeks because it is 10 o'clock on a Thursday night. I'm not putting my contacts back in. Uh, it makes me seem more studious, perhaps. Maybe I seem smarter with the glasses. I don't know. But I like to wear the glasses more at night now. I got these new ones, and I've been wearing the same glasses really. My wife can attest to it since I was like 16 years old, and they were in really bad shape. So now I have these new ones, and I get to wear them whenever I like. So glasses, Chad might be a thing here on the evening podcast. But anyways, that was a game. That was a game of hockey that we witnessed tonight. That's for sure. If you wanted to see the definition of what getting embarrassed and what getting dominated look like, you could show anybody who's not that into hockey that game because that was rough from a Sabres perspective. I mean, right from the opening faceoff, the fight, and that's honestly that's when I knew they were in trouble. It's not so much that because Cozens, got handled by Kakaniemi. That's not even it. It's just right off the bat, it immediately hit like the vibes of, oh boy, like Carolina got a message. Then they've been playing poorly. They're back at home. Like this, they're going to be going. They're going to be going tonight. And if you're not ready for it, you're going to get steamrolled. And they weren't ready for it. Steamrolling the result you saw there on the ice. 5-2, tough one. But it's not the end of the world. I mean, this. If you're one of the people that want to play the game of chasing the playoffs still, they weren't going to win all 27 games. You were going to have some losses in there, and you probably hoped they wouldn't look as ugly as this one. But it happens once in a while. That game pops in your season over 82, and you shrug it off, and you be on your way. Now, when you're the worst last place team in the Eastern Conference, a little bit more difficult to do. Totally understand, but I don't really want to go with the is what it is kind of thing because there's really a lot of in this game that I'm not upset about the result necessarily. For me, I think the most frustrating part is just the plays within it were terrible right from the start. I mean, one of the first two goals of Byram, just an easy pass right along the back of the wall. There's nobody on, no pressure, just flubs it right off his stick, right to Rantanen, out in front, 2-0. The penalty early, the decision to do that fight off the opening draw was, you can maybe say it was a little bit questionable, especially when you know the situation that Carolina's coming into that game. They've been struggling. They're looking for an early pop. Like, why would you give them that? But whatever. I mean, fine. Someone challenges you and you want to go, whatever. I'm not really gonna go that crazy into it. But the bonehead plays, like I called a few out like on Twitter, the Jack Quinn in the third period, just nobody near him, just throws it to the middle of the ice. Not even like blindly because he was looking right on the stick of a Hurricane player, goes up the ice. There's the Byron play that still is playing in my head. I mean, that's the type of shift, the type of play that, for me, like if I'm the coach of that team, like you don't play again. Like that was brutal. It was a pure Luc Dubois, I quit on my team type play. Like the puck is there on the wall. He deliberately slows down, doesn't go after the puck, avoids the contact, let the Hurricanes player take it. Bad. And then the ensuing rush down the ice. Power makes that turnover, but for some reason, Byram just skates into the left right corner for no apparent reason. Tonight might have been one of Byram's worst games he's played as a Sabre. He was horrendous right from the opening get-go. And it's really not him. I mean, there was nobody in this team besides James Reimer who I thought played well in any regard. It was bad. I mean, you name the guy, and you can say that they were not good tonight. Again, besides Reimer. So it's you move on though, and their next few games here are winnable. You have a home and home with Montreal, and then you have San Jose in your building, and then you have a couple more games. You have a Tampa Bay trip, and then Edmonton comes into your building there. So after these next 3 games, it gets a little bit more difficult. So again, if we're going to play this game of trying to claw your way back into the playoffs, you absolutely need to win the very least probably takes. So there's six, so 5 out of 6 at the very least of these next 3 games. The ones at home, I think you have to win against Montreal and San Jose, and then if, at worst case scenario, you get a loser point on the road. I think you can live with that. But we'll see. We'll see what this team is made of. We'll see if this game sets them back. If this game, if they can rebound from it, if they just put it behind them, it'll give us a kind of a good litmus test here at game 57 of if this team is really showing signs of being different. Because if they're not, this is going to continue. This is going to linger, and it's going to be 3 bad performances against 2 teams that are not very good. So we'll see how they react from that and where things go from here, what the lineup looks like with the changes. Not having Zucker tonight was not ideal, but that's not an excuse for what was put on the ice. That's for sure. So yeah, it is Mailbag Thursday, and I do owe a couple questions, so we are going to go through that. I have 1, 2, and 3. Actually, I have 3 questions that I'm going to go through here. And I picked these 3 ones in particular because I think they're going to tie into a few things from this game in particular, and then also moving forward over the next 7 to 8 days working into the trade deadline. So if you don't see your question and you sent one in, it's still on my list. I haven't deleted it. There's some that I'm saving for later in the season because I think they're more closer to off-season conversations that we don't really need to have right now. We'll save those. There's some more in-depth ones too, which we'll get into when we're in the dog days of late March and we're just trying to get to the end. We'll talk about some of those. All right. Where I want to start here, I think, is this one from Tyler, and it's on the goaltending. So I'll read it out loud for our podcast people. The question from Tyler is, there's many reasons, and he capitalized many, that the Sabres are not going to make the playoffs this year. But is it fair to say UPL is amongst the top? So here's where I come out on Luukkonen. First of all, tonight, by no means is his fault. I get them making the change. You have a lot of games here in a small window. Get Reimer in there, let him get some action. That's fine. But overall, I'll say he's a factor into them missing. Is he one of the top ones? I wouldn't say that. I think he's battled with consistency a lot this season, but it's not as bad as what we saw maybe, I think it was 2 years ago when he was one of the worst goalies in the league. It's not by any means near that, but it's also not what we saw last year. I think that we have to kind of accept and realize what we have here in this goaltender. And sure, you saw what he did last year, and you were hoping that would be repeatable, and you could just roll it over year after year after year. When it comes to goaltenders, there's only 3 to 4 guys in the league maybe that can continually perform at the level they're performing at right now, which is at the top of the league year in, year out. You can bank on it, you can count on it. Hellebuck, go through your list of guys that you can go with. I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, Hellebuck is definitely the guy at the top of the list that would really be there. Shesterkin's another one that is always going to be near the top. If you look at the top of it this year, who, raise your hand if you had Lucas Dassal as one of your top goaltenders going into the season by the numbers. It just doesn't happen. There's always those weird goalies that are up there. Joey Decord was that goalie last year. Insert goaltender here always somehow climbs to the top, and that's just the nature of the position itself. But what you have here is an average starting goaltender. He's going to give you some nights where he's excellent. He's going to give you some stretches where he's excellent. He's going to give you some nights where he's not that good. And that's just the nature of the player that you have here. And to be clear, you can be a playoff team with that goaltender. Teams have made the playoffs with much worse goaltending. I think he is good enough on this team to be a playoff goaltender for you. He can lead your team to the playoffs. He is not bad enough. And I'm going to say bad enough. He's plenty fine. He's the best goaltender that this team has had, since Miller, if you will. And you just and I've said it all season. I wish there'd be some more consistency. So I think that's what I want to see next season. I want to see you know, not a three good games, two bad, three good games, one bad, four good games, good game, bad, bad, good. They kind of put it together a little bit, and I think improving the defense around him will help certainly as the team goes. But I mean, really, like if you look at his contract right now, $4.75 million, I think that's pretty sure it's what it is without looking it up. I mean, that is nothing really. If you look at the goalie market right now, what Kevin Lankinen just got, what Mackenzie Blackwood just got, like these guys, the goaltending market seems a little nutty right now. So essentially, I mean, if you're looking at the Lankinen money, even like Luukkonen's making backup money right now. Basically, it's kind of the way you could take it, or 1B money. So that contract is not an issue at all for me. It's probably going to look relatively cheap if he can play a little bit better than what you've seen this season. Again, like I said, going into the year, if you just give me the league average, just be average for me, I can live with that at $4.75 million. That is good enough for my team to go play. I'll worry about getting a better goaltender that can carry me through the playoffs when I get there. But let's get there first, because I think he's good enough to get there, and I think he's good enough to play in that situation for you. So I guess to answer this question overall, is he amongst the top problems? I would say no. A problem, maybe, your fifth or sixth problem, sure, but I would not put him in that top three area. So let's go to what I think is a considerable problem. And that's talking about the center position. So this question came from Ben. If Cozens, I think I might have cut a word off here, but we'll just say if Cozens is done in Buffalo, let's go. That was a question. Does Kulik's play as of late open the door to shift focus of the return of a centerman to a bona fide partner for power to take precedence? So this is an interesting conversation that we had on here. I think maybe when Anthony was on last. But I know we talked about this recently, is the need for a top four defenseman, and then a need also for the center because of what Cozens is doing. And the reason I wanted to bring this question up, because I also wanted to mention something that I think became evident again in the last two games here, is Ruff needs, I think he needs to abandon the Tage playing wing thing. It worked for a little bit. That's great. You kind of got him going again. He got healthy. But you got to go back to putting him at center. He is the best center on this team. He is. You don't need to put him on wing anymore. Like, putting him back to center is what ignited and balanced their lines on Tuesday when they came back against the Ducks. If you look at the numbers between all of the poor and terrible numbers you had tonight, the line in which he played center was far and away their best line from a forward perspective. So you got to put him back at center. I just think you have to do it. Kulik has dipped a little bit. I also think playing with the fishbowl is impacting him. I don't think he's seen the puck that well. It's understandable that happens with guys. But still, I mean, it's a 20-year-old kid. You're asking to play top line center for you. Putting players in positions where it is difficult to succeed. This team does it over and over and over and over again. You can blame the coach, you can blame the GM, whoever. It's consistency no matter who's in charge, behind the bench, or who the general manager is. It's been a thing for like 10 years. It has to put a stop to it. Put Tage back as your top line center. He can do it. He seems healthier now. Just go back to it. And then also it establishes that that's what you're going to do next season. You tried it for a little bit. It did work, but it's not something you can carry over a long term of a season or even moving forward. It doesn't work that way. You create too many holes in your lineup if you're going to make him a winger, because then what I'm about to get to is then you would need two centers if you're going to make Cozens a winger. I'm sorry, if you're going to make Thompson a winger, because you have to replace Cozens, and you need somebody else also to not push Kulik too far up the lineup at such a young age. So that gets back to this original question of, well, what is more important? Getting power, that right shot defenseman that you need, or at the very least another defenseman that's not, Samuelson or Yoki Haru or whoever, insert name here, or the centerman that you clearly need in your lineup. I still think it's more important to get the defenseman, and I say that because you don't really have any backup. There's nobody coming in Rochester to save you. There's nobody in your prospect system that is close. There's nobody. There's nothing. So I think that is what you need to go out and get, because there's nowhere in your organization that can, in any possible way, save you as a top four defenseman. So you need to go out and you need to focus on getting that to solidify your top four. Byram and Darlene are fine if you're going to keep Byram. And Byram, like I said, had a terrible game tonight. Darlene wasn't that good either. But for the most part, they've been fine. You can roll in a bad game once every 30. I'll let that one go. So I still think the defenseman takes precedent. And from a center position, if it really came down to it, you can make Kulik your second line center. Hope that goes well. You have a really good a pretty good third line center in Ryan McLeod. And then, whatever you want to do with the fourth line, I don't know. I don't care. Whatever. Leave Krebs as your fourth line center. It's not. It's fine. Whatever. He's fine at that. That's going to be his role. Okay, great, grand, wonderful. But Cozens had a nice third period against the Ducks, and then here we are against Carolina, and it was atrocious again, terrible. And it doesn't look like they're going to do anything about it in season. I don't think that trade's going to be there for them unless something changes here over the next few days. I think it's something that's all addressed in the off season, but it's very evident that it's just not working here with this guy. It's not going to work here. You don't need to keep playing this out. You don't need to keep trying to run this out. Just accept it's not going to work. If you trade him and he goes somewhere else and he finds his game again, or is at least serviceable, that's okay. Because it's not going to happen here. You just have to make sure what you get back for him works for you here. It is okay if two teams win a trade. If both teams are happy at the end of a trade, it's okay. It's not a big deal. You can live with that. You can, be on your way and you can go. But I can't do another off season of, maybe he'll get better, maybe he'll bounce back. This is year 2, like 2 years of it. There is zip, zero, nada, none, nothing that is showing that he is going to improve, that he is going to be better for this organization. I don't care what one period of hockey does. I don't care if he has 3 points in one period of hockey. Awesome. Because the other 25 periods around that, before that, were terrible. The 3 periods after that one period of good hockey were terrible. So we just, and again, I don't think it's going to happen before next Friday, but in the offseason, something's got to happen there. You got to find a new home for him. You got to find a deal that works, that makes your team better. And I don't know whether that's a Pettersson trade that you pull back up in the summer or you find another hockey trade, fine. Get it, find it, get it done, because I really think the Cozens thing is just over. That it's not going to work here, and let's move on to something else. So while we're talking deadline, that gets into this next question here. So the question is, do you feel they'll move on from guys for smaller hockey-type trades to shake up, restructure the core? Or will that only happen if it's an undeniably huge deal like Pettersson? So I think this is a little bit of what we talked about yesterday, of the overall feel of where this deadline is at. It seems very quiet. And it's not just Buffalo. I think it's around the entire league. There's just not a lot going on. It really feels like the vibes that this is going to be a super dead deadline all the way around the league. Again, guys will get moved. The teams will sell some guys off and it'll happen. But I just don't think there's going to be a lot. I think because of how compact the standings are, which is a good thing, that most of the teams in this league still feel like they're in it and are pushing for a playoff spot. I think that's going to mitigate teams from making any drastic moves to their teams, from selling off guys that they may sell off in a different type of season or in a normal year that's a UFA. Like Brock Besser, for example. Like, is Vancouver really going to move him, or are they just going to keep him to push for the playoffs and try to do that? And then there's the Sabres are in the same boat with Zucker and Greenwood. And they would like to keep both of them, so they say. those again are two rentals that in a normal year in the past they go, no questions. They don't have a contract, they go. But I think this is the type of deadline where maybe the teams aren't offering a lot. There's not a lot of great returns out there, and these GMs might just sit there and go, I'll hold some of these guys that I want to bring back anyways. I'll continue to work on a contract, and we'll keep going forward. And we'll see where things shake out in April, May, and June. So I guess to go back and answer this, I don't really know what they're gonna do. I every most years I have a good pulse of what they're looking to do or what they would like to do, and of course, like, I think Kevin Adams would like to make a hockey trade that improves his team now and in the future. I think that's what he would like to do. I just don't think it's there, and that's unfortunate. I think they do something, and I'm not saying something in the sense of they get rid of Greenway and Zucker, and that's their something, or one of the two. I think they bring somebody in. I don't know if it's. I guess maybe a small thing, maybe a middle six forward somewhere that nobody's maybe really talked about, or it's a whoa, I didn't see that coming. Yeah, I just it's weird. This year is weird. I can't. I really just can't put my finger on the pulse of it of what is truly realistic. And like I talked about yesterday on yesterday's podcast, there's guys that I can dot connect, but usually there's a few guys every year, and I'm like, I know they're interested in those guys, and let's see if they can do it. Like, I don't really have that feel this year. And maybe they're keeping things super close to the vest. That's extremely possible, and they're going to pull off some surprise thing. I mean, even Byron for Middlestat was a little bit of a surprise. We knew Middlestat was out there, but that came through, and at least for me, was a little bit surprising they got that done when they did. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough, and that can be exciting too because you don't really know what to expect. So you're kind of like I'm ready for the unexpected, and then I'll go from there. Uh, but yeah, I see one of the comments here from YouTube if Adams should be allowed to even make these trades, and you could have that conversation if you want. I'll be perfectly frank with you. Like, I would at this point, I'd be surprised if he's not their general manager next year. And you just look at all the signs. 13-game losing streak still here. The struggles this team is going with through still here. Uh, the owner let him take an Elias Pettersson trade right up to the doorstep. I mean, you're not letting a guy that you plan to can in 2 months make that kind of significant roster altering trade if you plan to shove him out the door in 2 months. And there is some things on Twitter today about Adams and the reluctancy and all of that, and I'm not going to get into that now. To be honest, I have my opinions on it. I think there's certainly, I guess the best way to put it is like he doesn't get that over the top, puts me in a spot that I know that I have a player here that is really, it's at the top 6 forward. Let's just call it there. Going to get that player that they've needed since the offseason. Needed for 2 years now, probably. Just doesn't get it done. But at the same time, you can't say he doesn't do anything because he has made some significant trades. The McLeod for Savoy thing isn't nothing. That's a sizable move. Last year, the Middlestat for Byram trade is a sizable move. He went and got Greenway 2 years ago to help this team. That has worked out pretty well for them, I would say, when Greenway is healthy. So, it cuts both ways in a sense. And, the vibe that he is difficult to work with, like, I don't think it's a bad thing. If other GMs think that you grind him out, then good. It's not like he doesn't get things done. I did the numbers today. If you didn't see it, over the last 3 years, he's tied for 16th most trades in the league. So in the middle. So he managed to get things done still. And it's really just getting those things over the finish line. And I understand from some of the frustration on his part because we know there are some things that were done that didn't end up happening, whether it be a no move clause that was rejected or stopped it. For example, we can go back to the Matt Murray trade. Like that was one he had done, and that would have been sizable, moved him up to a certain spot. They were going to pick Marco Casper with that, and we see how well he's doing in Detroit now. That didn't work out. Um, there was a deal this summer that it has been reported didn't work out. I think other people, myself, disagreements what trade was specifically talked about, but it doesn't matter. It was something that I think again was ready to go. But on the other end, not his end, it just didn't get done. And I'm not having to make excuses for it because the job, as I said many times, your job is to get things done. So something falls apart on you, then that's tough luck. But you have to go find the next thing. And I know for a fact he did that. There was something that wasn't Nature's with Carolina in the offseason that didn't get done, and again, not on his side. So he went and got the McLeod trade done as a different thing. So there's evidence of both ways, but that's not to alleviate him of anything, as the guy talked about yesterday. It's this season and the way this team has performed, besides tonight, over the last quarter of the season. I think it's, again, like I said, it's an indictment against him for not doing anything, for not stepping in when you had the opportunity to fix this team by just, I don't want to say fix this team, but send some life, do something, inject something in there to change things up, and it just didn't happen. So he holds as much blame with how this season has gone as maybe anybody. And I get people's frustration that it's looking like he's going to be back next season. It's understandable. It's valid. I'm not going to tell you to not feel that way. But, if you're somebody out there hoping that something does change, I would say to set your expectations accordingly. And this doesn't mean that nothing will happen. I think there was points last season, early in the year, or the middle of the season, maybe. But I didn't think they were going to do anything with Granado. And then as time went along, as we got into March and April, it started to sound more and more, and I started to put it out a little bit that I don't think he's as safe as people think he is. And sure enough, when the season ended, boom, there he goes. So maybe as things go along here, maybe if it is a quiet deadline, and like, can you imagine a scenario where he just does literally nothing the entire season? That would be bananas. I think that organization, that front office, understands that cannot be the case on 4 o'clock on the 7th of March. You cannot be sitting there with the same exact roster that you took to Europe in October. Under no circumstances. You need to do something, even if it's moving Greenway off. It's something. Just, you cannot bring the same exact roster and do literally nothing in the entire season, because that would be such a bad luck. And I think they understand that, and is why I think one or two things are going to happen here over the next 7 days. But yeah, I mean, it'll be a super interesting conversation next Friday if we're sitting here and that is what ends up happening. Okay, 10:40 at night on a Thursday. I think I'm talked out. There's really not much else to dive into here. So, like I said, for those people who didn't see their questions, they sent in, I appreciate it. We're going to get to my promise. Like I said, I saved them. I still have them. I think there's a few that I just want to put in the right spots, and we'll get to them and have more thorough conversations, about it as we kind of get into a season that's just going to play itself out over the next week here. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Everybody enjoy their night. I will be back on Monday. That's planned. This is the the time of the year, I should say, when you say, unless something happens, I'll be back sooner. But as of now, the plan is to be back on Monday. We do have a fun guest lineup for next week. I have to lock in if it's going to be Monday or Wednesday. So once I get those details, I will share it with you. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good night. Talk to you soon. See ya.